On the corner of Constitution Avenue and 2nd Street Northeast, next to the U.S. Capitol, sits the Sewell Belmont House, home of the National Woman's Party. For more than 60 years, this house has been at the center of the American women's rights movement, a destination where activists congregate to fight for political, economic, and social equality for women. The Sewell Belmont House has been an integral part of the history of civil rights in America. July 1848, Seneca Falls, New York. Nearly 300 women and several dozen male supporters, led by Elizabeth Cady Stanton, gather at the first Women's Rights Convention. They issue a resolution, the Declaration of Sentiments. It states all men and women are created equal and includes a radical demand for the universal right to vote. It is the first battle cry for women's suffrage, and it will be decades before victory is declared. Success will come from a brave new generation of activists who are sophisticated, savvy, and determined to make real change for women in America. Their leader is a 29-year-old Quaker named Alice Paul. March 3, 1913, the day before Woodrow Wilson's presidential inauguration. Thousands of women assemble at Alice Paul's urging and march down Pennsylvania Avenue. They're demanding the right to vote. It is a spectacle never before seen in the nation's capital. But as the march proceeds, violence erupts. The crowds trip, grab, and shove the marchers, shouting obscenities at them. The police refuse to intervene, and the cavalry must be called in to crush the riot. In the end, 100 people are hospitalized. But the media coverage brings this story to the national stage, exactly as organizers had planned. Alice Paul and her fellow activists have waited long enough for meaningful change. They found the National Woman's Party and are determined to do whatever it takes to achieve the ultimate goal, a constitutional amendment granting women the right to vote. Energized by media coverage of the parade, Alice Paul follows up with another kind of publicity stunt. All-female automobile tours, some coast to coast, on roads that are rarely paved. In 1917, Alice Paul plans the party's most daring media blitz, a picket of the White House, the first group ever to do so. Women carry banners criticizing the president. But World War I is raging overseas, and dissent against the government is seen as treasonous. The pickets spark riots among onlookers, and Wilson orders the women arrested. In all, some 2,000 women picket. A quarter of them are detained on a charge of obstructing traffic. In prison, they are badly mistreated, some even beaten unconscious. They go on hunger strikes to protest. In response, prison guards force-feed them, violently shoving tubes up their noses and down their throats. Lucy Burns, co-founder of the National Woman's Party, and others detail the brutality on scraps of paper smuggled out of prison and into the hands of reporters. The articles they write mobilize supporters across the country. Amid public pressure, the president backs down. The women are set free and immediately cross the country by train to further promote their cause. A few weeks later, Wilson decides to back the constitutional amendment to give women the right to vote. For the next 20 months, members of the National Woman's Party fight for the Susan B. Anthony Amendment in the House, the Senate, and finally, state by state. More than 70 years after the battle began, the 19th Amendment is ratified, becoming law on August 26, 1920. For the first time in American history, the country's 20 million women have the legal right to vote. For Alice Paul and members of the National Women's Party, however, the struggle for equality is far from over. In 1929, the NWP purchases one of Washington's most prominent houses, located just a block from Congress. From this House, members of the party draft more than 600 pieces of legislation in support of women's issues at the local, state, and federal level, half of which are passed. For years, they lobby to pass the Equal Rights Amendment and back campaigns to get women elected to office. Their work continues for decades. Today, the Sewell-Belmont House stands as one of the nation's most important monuments to the ongoing battle for equality for women and to the dramatic achievements of the National Woman's Party.